At the end of the 2024 season, I finished with a PR of 58.16, and my race at World Championships was almost a 62-minute full Hyrox Pro. After just one offseason, I started the 24-25 season with a PR of 54.28 and had my best athletic season at age 39. Most of this I can credit toward my off-season training protocol. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how I did that, what pieces of training I put in place, what pieces I removed, and how my off-season training led to my best season of all time. The first thing that I always consider is when it's time to train. It's easy to just jump into things and just feel like you have to train because it's just part of your routine, or you're just kind of in a rush to improve. But now is the time to really settle things down and understand when you're ready. If you start too soon, it's less likely that you're going to be as prepared as possible because your workouts are going to suffer either mentally or physically. So this checklist that I'm going to share is really helpful when it comes to knowing when to train so that your training can really be executed at the highest level possible. The first thing that you have to consider is your health. You need to be 100% healthy before you start any type of new training block. It's really easy to kind of train through something that feels not that bad, but you know it's there and you're thinking about it some, but it doesn't hurt during training. If you are having this and you start your next season, the chances of it getting better during the training block is much lower than if you just take complete rest or do things that are just going to make you feel better, whether that's go to PT or do some different mobility exercises, whatever you need to do, you need to get 100% healthy. You cannot perform at your absolute best if you are not 100% healthy. If you start a training block and you're not 100% healthy, the chances of it getting worse only increase. So you need to make sure that you back things off and that you start the training program, because if you have a lingering injury throughout the whole season, it's just going to lead to more frustration and you're going to put in hard work, but you're not going to get the results that you need. So you have to be 100% healthy. The second thing that I like to do, I need to have a reflection. The reflection period is where I take a look at the previous season, I take a look at my most recent race, and I take a subjective and an objective feeling about how things went, and I can kind of come up with a hypothesis as to why that is, and then I could take what worked or didn't work and move it into my next training block. This process for me looks like 2 to 3 to 5 dedicated days of just thinking and journaling things out and doing light aerobic work and just really thinking about this whole thing. And then I can have all these thoughts down on paper or just out of my head so that I can create the hypothesis that I need for the next round. Then I will kind of write out what I think I need to do, and I will plot things out in terms of how much time I have. And basically it's just a big time to plan things going forward. So this reflection period is extremely important. It's important so that I just don't jump back into things where if I take a little bit of time to think about what worked and what didn't, it could make a huge difference in my results. The third piece goes along with my mental health. The physical health has to be there, but the mental health really is important when it comes to the next training block. If I feel like I have to train and I don't want to train, then I know I'm not really ready. And if I just dive back into something, if I'm just physically or mentally worn down, the chances of burnout just increase in incredible amount. These seasons are long, so you have to feel ready to do it. So I want to make sure that mentally I'm feeling ready and engaged, and if I am, I know I'm ready to go. And finally, if I don't have any new ideas around training, I know I'm not ready to start. And this kind of goes hand in hand with everything above. If I don't feel physically ready to try new things, if I don't have time to think about what I want to do in this next block, if I'm not mentally engaged and feeling excited, then I won't have a new idea. And my new ideas for training are really what get me excited. So if I don't have those, and if I just want to go back to the things that I was doing, then I know that I'm not ready. So I need to have these new ideas because it makes me excited to train. It makes me physically ready. It means I'm mentally ready, and I'm going to have a better experience during off-season training. So having new ideas is a real important part of this process. So once I know I'm completely ready, I have 4 different factors that I want to consider when building out an off-season program. The first thing that I want to do is create a broad level of fitness. Hyrox, although has many different elements, is still fairly specific when it comes to the event itself. We know the demands, we know what it's going to be like out there. So if we just do the same thing over and over, we can create some holes in our fitness. And yes, we can get good at the one specific thing that we need to do, but I believe that a broader range of fitness built in the off-season program will ultimately raise your floor as an athlete. And at the end of the day, I believe that the most prepared athlete across a broad sense of fitness is going to be better off in Hyrox. So I like to broaden things out, so I'm not just doing very specific Hyrox things, and making sure that I'm filling any holes that may have developed during this very specific period of training on the in-season. The second piece that I always try to consider is getting faster. Now, getting faster is kind of like an amorphous term. It can mean a lot of things. Like speed work is just really, really broad. It could mean a 30-minute tempo. It could mean a 50-meter sprint. So when I talk about getting faster, I'm talking about the latter, like actually working on my high-end efficiency work. And this is really helpful when it comes to how well you're going to be prepared for running itself. So if you can improve your running form, your economy, your power, and just your efficiency across the board by doing shorter, faster sprints and shorter, faster work and speed drills, this is going to make the distance work that you're going to do feel easier and more efficient. So now's the time where I like to sprinkle in speed work, whether that's 30-second hill sprints or 100, 150 meters, kind of like wind sprints on a track. Whatever that is, I want to make sure that I'm working on actually getting fast and not just doing more. To actually get great at running, you have to work on the very specific skill, and now's the time to do that. The third thing that I always do is improve my movement quality. And this could be when it comes to how I am approaching each and every station or understanding where my limiters are and spending a dedicated amount of time to improve those. So for me, oftentimes it can be like an upper body and lower back mobility. This can be a bit of a limiter for me when it comes to my training. So for me, I need to know how I can open things up with a variety of different work when it comes to breath work, mobility, static stretching. I take everything to make sure that I'm moving better. Being efficient as a runner matters a lot, but being efficient as a mover in the stations is also going to be a critical part of your performance. And now's a great time to take away from just like that grunt work of zone 2 or just like zone 4 and spending a little bit more time working on your movement quality. Ultimately, this is going to raise your ceiling as an athlete so you move better, become more efficient across the board. And if you ignore this, it's ultimately going to be harder for you to recover and you're not going to have as good of an experience during your training or your racing. And the final thing I like to do, I like to keep training fun. I like to add a different variety into my training when it comes to how I'm actually programming everything. So the actual structure is going to look much different in terms of what I'm doing. And I like to play around and keep it fun. If it's not fun, it's not going to be as interesting to do, and I'm not going to want to do it for that long. So this is the time to really kind of freshen things up and make sure that the training is fun and that you look forward to doing it. This is a critical piece to the off-season program. So I've taken all of these elements and I've built out a 16-week training program within our RMR Training app and community for those who are looking to add a little bit of variety into their next training block. So I've built out all of these workouts and I'm really excited with the direction of this program. You can take a look at the description in the show notes and in that first comment if you want to join us, the RMR Training app and community, for your off-season training. If you're someone who would just rather kind of build this on their own, there's a couple things that I would like for you to consider when it comes to the actual structure. The thing that I really like to do is play around with the microcycles. So the macro cycle is how big of the several weeks, the 12 to 16 weeks. It could be up to like 32 to a year or whatever. Mesocycle is something that's kind of like a block in the middle. Oftentimes it's between like 2 and 6 weeks. And your microcycle is basically like your week of training. So I like to play around with that kind of microcycle duration. Most training programs are built for 7 days. Doesn't mean that that is optimal. You must never forget that time is a construct, and 7 days in a week is just like something that we as our society now just agreed upon with the way we work. You know how it is. But that doesn't mean that your training program has to fit that exact 7 day. There's nothing magic about 7 days. It works better for routine and it's predictable having like weekends. It's just easier to do the 7 day, but you can stretch that out. I'm personally approaching this season with a 10-day microcycle so that I can fit in a couple more things and play around with some different elements of quality sessions and for strength and my Metcon kind of work. It makes things a little bit less predictable, of course, and it takes a little bit more planning, but it makes it easier to do more work without needing to jam everything in and allows me to recover. So I'd recommend playing around with the microcycle. It could be shorter, it could be longer, it could be 9 days, 10 days, 14 days, it could be 30 days, whatever you want it to be. Playing around with that so that you can figure out a better cadence. Another thing that I like to do is play around with my rest days, figuring out where I put these rest days and how it makes me feel for the rest of the training block. So this could be your active recovery day or just a complete rest, and then understanding how you are training either before or after that day, and if that's something that you want to take and move into your regular training program. And really, it's just time to test and tweak, not to be incredibly rigid. I know as a Hyrox athlete, you probably like the structure or like to have something to be working toward, but keeping things flexible and loose is really important here. Being able to move things around so that you're not constantly having the mental stress of having things completely locked in the entire time. So making sure you are flexible, you are moving things around, even doing that on purpose sometimes, like changing the structure is really helpful just for longevity for your mental health when it comes to preparing for this event. So again, make sure you're taking a look down at the show notes or that first comment to join the RMR Training app. These are the steps that I have taken in my off-season training that has allowed me to continue to improve year over year as a Hyrox athlete. So you can make your next Hyrox season your best Hyrox season, but you have to have a plan and you have to implement it. And we'll talk to you soon.